Auto has been organizing the Spa Classic for the past 4 years, and the event has gone from strength to strength with high-quality competitors and an ever greater variety of old-timers on the track. The event has attracted cars clubs from Belgium, France, the Netherlands and England. Today, the Spa Classic is the biggest and certainly the most beautiful meeting of historic cars organized in Belgium. Patrick Vetter's idea is to recreate the history of the 24 hours of Spa, or the 20 hours of Francorchamps, as the event was known at the time. All motorsports lovers, and more generally all Belgian people, have vivid memories of this race. The 20 hours of Francorchamps today is a GT competition, but at its heyday it was a race for touring cars. So we tried to put these cars back on the track. These are cars from the 1970s, the Capri, CSLs for example. This year we have 35 cars in this grid, and I think it will get bigger over time. At the time, these cars competed for 24 hours. Of course, we won't do this now, but we have one daytime race and one nighttime race for them. And this creates a really special atmosphere with all the real fans watching on. During the Spa Classic, 2 grids are dedicated to touring cars. The so-called U2TC historic motor racing may include slightly less powerful cars, but it is certainly one of the most spectacular series. The U2TC series is for touring cars built before 1966 and powered by engines of less than 2 liters. These were mainstream cars, and at the time the championship marked the beginning of GT competitions on a European level. In short, the U2TC is the ancestors of today's WTCC, the championship in which Sébastien Loeb is taking part this year. In the 1960s, the competition was the playground of the likes of BMW 1600, 1800 and 2000, as well as the Alfa Romeo Giulias, Giuliettas and Sprints, or the Ford Cortina Lotus. The Cortina, made by Lotus between 1963 and 66, was developed especially for this kind of race. This car is light and fast, a real joy for those lucky enough to drive it. To drive fast with this kind of machine, the best and only way is to use the brakes as little as possible to avoid laboured accelerations, and this causes long runaways on corner exits.
It is probably one of the most difficult races you could ever do, because everybody is so close in either their engine, their setup, their driving ability, and if you make one mistake, you'll find that there'll be 3 or 4 cars will overtake you.
The second touring grid of the weekend was the Heritage Touring Cup, or HTC, a celebration of the heyday of the European Championship and the 24 hours of Francorchamps between 66 and 84. So many cars took part in these competitions during that period that it's impossible to list all the eligible makes in this category. But some of them have marked history, such as the BMW 3.0 CSI and CSL Batmobile, This car is the ultimate evolution of the brand sports coupe. Aluminium doors and top cover, a 6-cylinder engine with 350 horses. At the time, the CS was top of its league and snatched 4 victories at the 24 Hours of Spa. This 1975 make belongs to Franco Miners, a race cars collector from Italy. These cars were fascinating for many of us, and they have often spent many years without being used. Because after just a few years, these racing cars are considered out of date, just because they cannot compete anymore. And 20 years later, they become interesting again and they return to the track. It's very interesting to look at magazines from that period, to look at when it competed, who drove it and why, what results it got, and to recreate this story. Each race lasts 1 hour with a mandatory 1-minute stop about halfway through. Some teams use this time to change drivers, while others simply have a small break and continue the race. One of the most astonishing guests this year is Richard Perstins and his Rover Vitesse. In 1983, the Vitesse climbed on the podium at Spa, and this car, prepared by the TWR team, has seen quite a few prestigious drivers during its career, including Tom Walkinshaw himself, Brundle, Schlesser or Medge. several American cars are also ready to tackle the 24 hours of Spa, like the Chevrolet and Camaros. It's true that the big American cars have not really had their times of glory on the Belgian track, but the fans still remember the sounds of those roaring V8 engines. The Ford Capri has also left lasting memories, a fierce rival of the BMWs in the 1970s, with 5 victories under its belt at the 24 hours. The Capri is a dream come true for Thierry Delattre-Dubusco, who recently bought the very same make that won the 24 hours of Francorchamps in 1971. It's a real privilege to drive this car, with such a great history. I've given it the same colors that it had at the time, so the real fans will recognize its design as well as the wonderful sound of the engine. The current director of the Spa circuit is also taking part behind the steering wheel of a BMW. Pierre-Alain Thibault has also taken part in the 24 hours many times and has won the first HTC race at the weekend. He's one of many distinguished drivers of the Spa Classic, alongside Jean-Michel Martin, 4-time winner of the 24 hours. I am here as a member of the public. I'm not a great expert of historic cars, but I've driven several of the makes that are taking part today. It's a real joy to look at all of them and to meet up with some of the drivers that I knew at the time in the paddock. It's like a great party for motorsports. It's a big party that the drivers are happy to share with the public, be they passionate experts or just tourists enjoying the spring air of the Belgian Ardennes. The Spa Classic truly has something for everyone. In the Automobilia village, for example, you can find anything about historic cars, from spare parts to specialized books, through to artworks or small-scale models, as well as the Spa Classic clothing line. For the youngest fans and their dads, the slot racing offers an introduction to high-precision driving on 8 parallel tracks. Another popular activity, the Soapbox Derby on the Saturday afternoon. The drivers leave at the top of the famous Rédillon for a spectacular plunge down to the Eau Rouge. In this case, it's not really an introduction, but rather pure entertainment. We are back on the track for the nighttime races. The touring cars had the privilege to drive in the dark. From the top of the straight line, the downhill drive towards Stavelot is a steep descent for the toughest drivers who have very little visibility. In the U2 TC series, Alex Furiani and Frank Stippler on Alfa Romeo cling a double victory. They win both the daytime race and the nighttime one. Frank Stippler is far from a newbie on this track. He had already won the 24 Hours of Spa in 2002 with an Audi R8. While the fight is raging on the track, the celebrations are in full swing at the Eau Rouge Hotel. The Spa Classic party is a kind of rock and roll soirée.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go on with the show here. We're going to take you with...
As well as a show full of glitter and glamour.
Now it's a straight fight between Alex Furiani, who
We're approaching midnight, the temperature is ideal and the public is enjoying the show from the terrace during the second race of the Heritage Touring Cup. Once again, the BMW CSLs have crushed their competitors. The victory goes to German driver Dominic Rochman. Spa is famous for its unpredictable weather, but this time the sun has shone all weekend long at the Spa Classic. On Sunday morning, the excitement goes up a notch in the paddock with no less than 6 races on the schedule. The first drivers to hit the track on Sunday morning are Formula 2 drivers. During the late 1960s and the 70s, F2 racing was a reference, a real step on the ladder for the future Formula 1 stars. The list of European F2 champions includes prestigious names such as Beltoise, Regazzoni, Peterson or Lafitte. The level was so high at the time that it was not unusual to see F1 drivers on these races. Some great names like Clark, Lauda, Rindt, Scheckter or Patrese have all appeared in F2 competitions. But Formula 2 races were also a great playground for single-seater manufacturers like Chevron, Lotus Brabham, Martini, Ralt or Matra. Some of these cars with a tubular chassis or riveted aluminium construction were regulars on the Spa track.
La 60 de Rico Baron, ça fait en tout début de séance. Alors que s'est-il passé?
We're now moving on to the Trofeo Nastro Rosso. The Trofeo was dedicated exclusively to Italian cars from the 1950s until 1965. In other words, these cars are real jewels, the most beautiful Ferrari 250-275 alongside the elegant Maserati 300s. In this category, we also find the uncommon 250 LM, as well as other cars that have marked the history of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, such as the sleek Bizzarini 5300 GT. This car has quite an extraordinary look, and also a very interesting history. It competed in Le Mans, and for me it is a real pleasure to drive this car. Vintage cars enthusiasts are not all necessarily at the same level as the talented drivers fighting against the clock on the Spa track. So the Spa Classic offers a beautiful opportunity for the members of historic cars clubs to enjoy the atmosphere of the paddock. This includes Roland, happy owner of a Lotus 11.
C'est juste une rencontre informelle.
For us, it's just an informal meeting. We could compete on the track, but we prefer not to. We don't want to take risks. What we all have in common is that we love historic cars. And we have fun meetings to share a good time, drive our cars, and talk about vintage cars. The 60s endurance grade attracts the longest list of machines, including of course the Jaguar Type Es that reigned supreme on the track in the 1960s.
They can get to the track to the 1 o'clock terminal. Classic, I mean they raced in period. These cars raced as well as the Cobras. And they were beautiful to drive, they were beautiful road cars, but they're also very well handling and very good cars for racing.
Plenty of nerve and skill to control this kind of spin. Thankfully, the small episode has a happy ending and the car and driver are both safe. But this image is the perfect illustration of how intense these fights can be. If you're not convinced yet, hop on board of David Hart and Hans Hugenholz's Cobra as they fight against Yvon Maillet for the victory. As in all other Spa Classic races, the 1-minute break is compulsory. The number 3 of the standing uses this brief stop to leave the steering wheel of his Jaguar to Gary Pearson. The Austin Healey's are rubbing shoulders with the Porsche, Corvettes and Lotus like Aries Mestax 15, but the Jaguars and Cobras are leading this category. Yvon Mahé will not be able to overtake Hart and Hungenholtz, who win the competition, 2 AC Cobras ahead of the Jaguar of Monteverde and Pearson. Here is one of the most anticipated events of the weekend, the auction organized by the prestigious Bonhams Company. More than 60 cars have been sold, with prices ranging from 6,000 to 600,000 euros, catering for all kinds of budgets. It's a real success and an exceptional range of cars.
En fait, on a évidemment une grande base de données.
Of course, we have a large database, and we have clients who build up their collection. They buy, sell, rebuild their collection to their taste. And of course, that allows us to sell high-quality cars. 90% of them come from private sellers, and that's important to us. What is hard to find is the right product at the right price, especially in today's market. Lots of people want to hold on to their cars because they are tangible assets. Overall, the cars sold at Spa in 2014 were worth 3 million euros. The classic endurance racing grids revived the great days of endurance competitions. This series is reserved to endurance cars from 1966 to 79. It revived the glory of 1,000-kilometer races. Ford GT40, Porsche 910, Ferrari 512, BMW M1, the crème de la crème of endurance racing cars is here. At the time, these cars competed not only in Le Mans but also in the World Championship, which included competitions in Spa-Francorchamps. In short, it can be considered a bit like the ancestor of the current World Endurance Championship. In the race of the first grid, 2 Lolas have fought a hard battle. 60-70 makes on the track occupy the top ranks until the very end, when Richard Mille and Yvon Mahé have to surrender against Eric de Doncker, delighted to win on his favorite track. It's fantastic to ride the same cars as the ones we drove in Le Mans. They're very powerful with vintage gearboxes, so it's real driving and it's really good fun. It's fast and we have pretty much the same time as the more modern cars with slick tires, so it's a really great atmosphere. And to enjoy this special atmosphere, there is nothing like a stroll amidst the stands. At Spa Classic, the public can admire the cars from up close. The teams have nothing to hide, and it's even possible to watch the mechanics at work. Gearbox changes or carburetor adjustments, this is all a vital part of the competition that we don't get a chance to see in modern races. The second grid of the Classic Endurance Racing Series is for more recent cars. The Porsche 911 have upgraded to 935, and most tires are now slick. But one thing hasn't changed. In this competition as well, the drivers are here for a real fight, even if the race is tough on the engines. These cars are made for racing, not to gather dust in a museum. The Spa Classic is its own kind of living museum, like no other. Lafargue, Knackfield, Darocha and Philippe Semamin are putting on a wonderful show. But unfortunately, the driver of the Lola T290 has to abandon the race after a gearbox problem. Meanwhile, Mesdag falls down to the bottom of the standing after a puncture on his TRD with a BMW engine. As is often the case, the GT2 story is all about Porsche. The 935 lead the way, and in the end, Swiss driver Marc Siebenthal is the winner. The final victory of the CER2 grid goes to Patrick Lafargue on a Lola T298 with a BMW engine.
Spa is
really a magical place for drivers, even for non-professionals like we are. We have wonderful sensations here. It's not my first time here, but it's always enjoyable. It's just a shame that it only lasts an hour. We are getting closer to the very end of the 4th edition of the Spa Classic with the Group C series, the most recent machines of this competition that all left their mark on the championships of the 1980s. The look of these splendid makes seemed quite close to the contemporary designs, and the link with the current Audis, Porsches and Toyota competing in Le Mans seemed obvious, even 30 years later. The Group C also races for an hour, giving us a chance to watch the Sauber Mercedes C11 at work, the very cars on which Michael Schumacher, Hans-Harald Frentzen and Karl Wedlinger have practiced before moving on to Formula One. Porsche and its 962s make up a good part of the grid, but the star of the weekend is the Mazda 767B and its rotary engine, the only of its kind that has ever won the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
The car hasn't raced for 25 years, and to my knowledge it's the only one racing. It's an amazing experience. The car just got ready on Tuesday, so we had no chance to test it. So this is more like a testing session, but it's amazing to be part of that event and drive that car, which got such a nice history.
Here is another jewel on the track, a 1982 Porsche 956C with an impressive track record.
It's an absolute privilege for me to drive this car. If you think the history of the car is amazing, it came third in Le Mans in 1982, so I'm really excited.
There's a mandatory break in the C Group race, as in all the other series, but with an important difference. These cars also need more fuel. At the time, they were already designed to last only about 45 minutes on the track. Mike Donovan and his Spies get the bronze medal of this race ahead of Flock and Kubota on Nissan. The Spa Classic winners are Bob Berridge and Gareth Evans, two great names of endurance racing, once again on Sauber C11.
C'est a very job. Bravo, messieurs. Congratulations, guys.
The fourth edition of the Spa Classic is a resounding success, and everybody now waits the 2015 edition, which promises to be even more impressive.